So let's talk about the questions you should consider before dating a single dad. If you're new here, my name is Aaron. I make content on my life as a single dad. My son is 11 years old, middle school, and I officially legally have 50-50 custody. But the reality is that my child lives with me 100% of the time. I handle all parenting responsibilities. And, maybe that's going to be something I have to deal with in the future in terms of maybe filing for full custody or whatnot. But for the sake of making it less strenuous, keeping it out of the court, um, I just haven't taken it that far. But uh, who knows? Maybe that's on the horizon. But let's start with the first primary question. Do you want to be a mom? Do you want to be involved with a kid? Do you want kids? I could definitely see a situation where someone would be convinced that, they want to give it a shot. But having a kid, if you don't have kids already, it's a lot. It's like a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of thought. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of responsibility. It's not going to be the same as having full access to somebody whenever you want. And you really just have to ask yourself, are you ready for that? My life before and after kids is like night and day. I don't have the free time, the flexibility. I can't get up and go. I can't, take some great opportunity across the country. I just can't do things like that because my primary focus is providing stability for my son. And if you're getting yourself involved with a single dad, that's going to be something you're going to have to be prepared for. And in preparation for this video, I've been looking at comment sections on videos. And one thing that I see pretty commonly is like this sentiment that behind every single dad is like a family support system or a mom or a girlfriend or something like that. So the level of responsibility can vary widely if they have their kid on the weekend versus if they have their kid 24/7 like me. I can't just go on vacations. You're not going to have 100% of my time. And that is something that, a lot of people just are not interested in. And in these comments is typically someone like, I dated a single dad and I basically was taking care of his kid 100% of the time. I don't know. I think you have to kind of evaluate every person, every situation differently. If you've put yourself in the situation where you have your kid 100% of the time, I can't imagine you immediately pawning your kid off to essentially a stranger. That doesn't seem real. But with that said, there's definitely going to be places for this new person to step in and fill a role. Maybe it's just, conversations, maybe it's just emotional support, maybe it's a daycare pickup. Like there's going to be some responsibilities which will of course vary depending on the age of the child. My kid at 11 is pretty self-sufficient. He can cook, he cleans, he does his homework by himself, he hops on the bus, he gets off. Like he does a lot. But at the same time, if you're involved with a guy who's got a kid who's like 4 or 5, that's a very different life. The expenses go down, the time goes down. Like there's going to be a lot more freedom as the kid gets older. But yeah, in those earlier years, it's going to be a lot more responsibility. And if you want no part of that, then this is definitely not something to even consider. The next thing I would say is like, what are your needs in terms of time? Like, what's your career like? Are you super busy? Do you travel for work? Are you always there? Do you want somebody who's up under you 24/7? Like, do you need a lot of alone time? These are real considerations. But again, this kind of depends on the age of the child. A young child, you're probably not going to get too much alone time until, the kids go to sleep. Maybe they go to a grandparents' house. But of course, an older child, they're doing their own thing. Maybe they got a part time job, they're playing sports. So there's a lot more freedom. In addition to that, you have to consider the support system around the father. Now, personally, I don't have any support system. It's just me. I'm in a foreign town. I don't have any family. Maybe there's some kind of event or something like that going on that my kid's involved in. But for the most part, it's just me. I'm the support system. So that's going to be a little bit different. It's going to mean that there's not going to be as much flexibility with my time. Unlike someone who has their parents living in their backyard, I could drop off my kid with their grandparents so we have time to go and kick it. So you definitely need to dig into that. Like find out about how do they get away? What is their alone time? What's their vacation? What's their support system? Like however you need to ask that, you need to find that out because with or without a support system are two vastly different worlds. And I personally would rather have one, but without one, I make it work, but it would be a very different life if I had one for sure. Personally, I think not having that support system is probably why I shy away from dating because I know my kid needs me emotionally, physically, without having someone who I'm super comfortable around or that family system that he's real familiar with. it's not the same. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a hot take out there because I think it's important, but I think it will answer a lot of questions. What is the personality like of the child? One thing with raising kids you learn is that every kid is different. You can have 5 different kids, exact same home, and they will react to things differently. One of them's very emotional, one of them's very tough, one of them doesn't care about anything. Like everyone's all over the place with their personality, and different personalities have different requirements. And I think, whether or not you guys get along is going to determine a lot of this. So, a lot of people will say you should wait as long as possible to meet the kid, but I don't know. Personally, I feel like maybe there's some kind of informal way to have some kind of soft introduction. Maybe they're picking up the kid from practice and you just show up and you're just a friend, and you just see how the kid behaves around you in, just a 10 or 15-minute interaction. Like I would think having as many soft interactions ahead of time as possible would probably be for the best, just so you can get an idea of, who this kid is. But it'll also tell you a lot about how this child is being raised by the father, which can kind of tell you if this is somebody you want to be involved with in the first place. And it'll give you some interactions where you get to see how he introduces you, what he's comfortable with. Like, is he very in control of the situation? Is he pushing you to jump right in and be mom? Like, you'll start to see maybe a pattern as to what his expectations are. That's the big thing here, is like, is it right for you? You might be willing to date a single dad, but every single dad is not the same. You really can't come into it with any presumptions because you're going to learn a lot about the person based on their kid. I can't imagine being with somebody who my kid did not adore because, they are going to fulfill some role. They're going to be around him. So it's like, if it doesn't work for him, it doesn't work for me. And I think it's the same for you. If it doesn't work for you, then it ain't going to work no matter what. I understand why people are very hesitant about bringing their children around strangers, but I think it depends on the context in which you're bringing them around. If a kid just meets your friend at a baseball game, it's not the same thing as them being introduced as your fiance or their future mother or something more extreme. I think one of the advantages of dating a single dad, if there are any, is that typically a single dad is going to be way more interested in stability, way more interested in figuring out if the situation works, and they're not really interested in wasting your time because they probably don't want to go through the attachment that comes from introducing a child into a relationship only for it not to work out. And of course, what is the relationship with the mother? Is it amicable? Is it 50-50? Is it weekend? Is it only in the summers or alternating years or whatever? Like, that custody situation is going to have a lot to do with it. Now, my case is definitely a little bit different. Having primary custody, a lot of the things that, you know, typically go on with a co-parenting relationship just don't exist. But at the same time, legally, I am a 50-50 co-parent. And, that might present some challenges down the road. I might have to file for, sole custody. Mom's not involved in that way, so I don't feel like it's necessary. But it's definitely something to consider, child support obligation or the possibility that the other parent might file to change the custody situation in the future. Like, you might be dealing with real legal complications in the future. So yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Find out that information, figure out what that relationship is, figure out, what the co-parenting situation is. And you have to ask yourself if you can handle it. You definitely want to really watch how someone speaks about their ex. Um, I think it's a common concern that someone's hung up on their ex or they're going to go back to them. And I'll throw this out, like, if the person was married, make sure they're actually legally divorced. While you might be ready to leave a relationship, when you actually get into the legalities of filing a divorce and that procedure and the financial implications of that, there are a lot of reasons why someone may be hesitant to actually go all the way through with it. So yeah, you definitely might want to check out the paperwork on that, just to make sure everything's on the up and up. But in terms about how he speaks about his child's mother, it's definitely something I'm always mindful of because regardless of how I feel, that's my kid's mom. So I'm just never really going to trash her. I'm never going to say maybe how I really feel about certain things that have gone on because, at the end of the day, like, once the paperwork's finalized and everything, and then the dust is settled, like, I got my son, I feel like I won, and I'm really ready to move on. And I think that someone who isn't necessarily there is going to speak in a way that reflects that they're not quite over it. But also, it's like, what role do they accept in the breakup or the breakdown of the relationship? That's important. Sometimes there is no relationship. Sometimes there never was one. But then other times, you got to take responsibility for your role in why things didn't work out. And if someone's not there yet, then you're probably going to be the one they end up blaming next. I do see where people will question whether or not a man is ready to move on, if he's ready to start a new relationship. But I don't really think that's it. I feel like a single dad who has decided to introduce someone to his child who is trying to move forward with his life is doing just that. I don't think it's something that they take lightly because, bringing someone new into their kid's life is a very big deal. And they've probably thought about that a lot more than you might imagine. But I think the question is, have you thought about what that means? Like the amount of responsibility you would be taking on, the actual role of stepping into being a mother figure, your willingness to be involved with all the extra stuff that goes into dating a single dad. One of the biggest, of course, being what happens if the relationship doesn't work out. You've now formed this bond with this child and you're no longer going to be there. Like, what is that breakup going to look like? Are you coming into it and saying, look, no matter what, I want to be involved with this kid's life, even as a mentor or a friend or whatever? Or are you just like, look, when this thing is over, it's over? That's definitely one of my hesitations. Like, a breakup with a child is not the same thing as a breakup when you're 22 and you're figuring out what you want to do with your life. It's not going to just impact me. It's going to impact him. So I'm a lot more hesitant to get involved than I might have been in my earlier years. Are you also comfortable with the speed in which a relationship is going to progress with a single dad? I can't speak for anyone else, but I imagine things are probably going to move a little bit slower because there's other parties involved. It's not just a matter of if we love each other. It's like, is it the right fit all around? Because it's just not a consideration for two. It's going to be a consideration for at minimum 3 and who knows how many others. Are you ready to hear that you're not my real mom, despite the fact that you might do more for that child than their mother ever did? And can you handle it, man? Because it's a lot. But at the same time, I'm biased, and I think that single dads are the best guys out there. Getting divorced and then being on social media, a lot of the conversation about dating is like there's being this huge mismatch between where men and women are these days. And I think the more I would hear these conversations, the more I realize a lot of this stuff just probably doesn't apply to single dads in the same way. Definitely caution you to not judge a book by its cover. Like, listen to the guy's story, find out why the situation is the way it is. Because even though I have custody of my son now, I have compassion for guys who don't, because there was definitely a time in my divorce when I legitimately wanted to throw my hands up and just quit. I just didn't feel like there was anything I could do. I felt like the system was against me, and I didn't want to, but I just didn't feel like I could go anymore. I definitely feel like one of the lucky ones, but I empathize with those who don't have a similar situation, and I don't judge because I know what it took in order for me to be in the position I'm in today. And I just would caution you about making any sudden judgments, and honestly, just looking at the person for their character. A lot of these dating conversations, I feel like, miss the whole character thing. The thing about a single dad is that character becomes so much more important, because not only are you growing and raising another child, but your integrity, who you are, what you do matters so much more. When you make mistakes as a single person, it's just you. You can go and live in your car for a few months and figure things out. You can go back to your parents' house. But when you're a dad, when you're responsible for another human, everything is magnified. So I'm a little biased, but I would love to hear what you guys think. Put it in the comment section below. I'd love to have a conversation. If you want to follow my journey as a single dad, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.